Hi, Tech Stars. Okay, so I want us to talk about the bekhona manuvurgus omninzi ubusenzeka last week. Uvurgus in the tech space. And so I like to obviously share with you the reason we are here on this platform is to build a community to help each other to learn, help each other to capacitate ourselves with the knowledge that we need to understand tech, not to fear tech, and unpack it, remove the jargon, and explain it. So that when the next time you read an article or there is some noise around what is happening in the tech space, especially for listed tech giants, you know exactly what's happening. So last week there was a lot of coverage in the media around a platform called Deepseek, which is a GPU provider that is used for AI. And so for you to understand what that is about, must qale qaleni. So for those of us who don't understand tech, we've never been techies, let's just get the fundamentals right. If you understand the fundamentals, then it's easier to get up to speed. Bakhona ke, of course, abantu abazi kakhulu. Also kwazi abazi yonke into. It's not for you, le. It's for people that are trying to understand, get up to speed. So we're going to start slow. We're going to start so that we understand the concepts. Then we're going to ramp up. Yabona by January. Yabona by March, so let's start with a computer. Ne? Computer only has about, okay, so a computer system must up. Computer has got input, compute, output. Input, keyboard, touch screen. That's your input. Compute sits in the middle. And then output is the screen or a printer. Now, we're going to be zooming in on the middle part, which is compute. Within the compute, there's a couple of components. One of them is storage. The second one is CPU, so processing unit. So unqonzo ngqakelo ebesenza noise around processing, which is why it's important for us to understand in the bigger scheme of things where it sits. So slaba compute masne. So we said we've got storage, we said we've got processing, and then we also have a network interface so that you can connect your laptop or computer to the LAN, transmit, and connect to the internet. Masqale apha ku memory. You've got two types of memory on your computer. You've got random access memory, which is what you access when you power up your computer. You've got solid state drive, which is your hard drive. And that is where your programs, your data, as well as your operating system are stored. The secondary storage, which is your, let me call it solid state long-term memory, is what you can retain once you've powered off your computer. And then when you light your computer, you can retrieve your files. Now, when you are using your files move to random access memory because the random access memory is quicker to access. It's also known as volatile memory. So imagine a scenario where you're cooking in your kitchen, ne? Uvula ifridge yakho, mhlawumbe uthi ndenza lamb stew namhlanje. Uthathe eza ingredients, uzibeke phezu kwetafile. Uvale ifridge yakho. ifridge yakho, that is your long-term storage, because into ezipha awuzuzisebenzisa. For the task at hand, whether you're writing, let's say you're writing a document, you're accessing an app, you're recording a video, you're using your random access memory. So yabona ke ngoza ingredients uzikhupha efridgini wazibeka pha phezu kwetafile zizoqha ozazisebenzisa. Because RAM is, I don't know if you've noticed this. So for sometimes on your computer, if you open too many apps, it slows down your computer, and then you'll see sometimes your computer will freeze, your computer will want to reboot. It's because you've jammed up RAM. So RAM, you keep it light, use only what you need, and it then communicates quicker with your processor. Within compute, we've finished with the memory. Let's then touch on the network interface card, and that is just so that you can plug in to the Ethernet, you can plug in internet when Metro, whatever it is, but it's to connect externally. Computer to computer, computer to internet, computer to cloud. That's the card. It's a network card. Ikona pa apa kule box le compute. Now, what is the most probably plays the most crucial role is then your CPU. Your CPU is what is interacting with your RAM. Sakumblasteni site whatever program you've opened. So let's say you've opened a Word document, you've opened a PowerPoint. La PowerPoint document yako ihleli pa ku RAM. And then it is interfacing with your CPU. CPU is your processing unit. CPU only does 3 things. It fetches, it decodes, it executes. So if you tell it, move the circle from here to here, it's your CPU that's doing that. If you tell it, increase my font, it's your CPU. So its CPU is sitting there with instructions on how to interface with absolutely every application that is running on your computer. CPU, clock speeds for CPU will vary, I think up to about 2.5 gigahertz, which is your clock speed. So clock speed is within your CPU, what you call an oscillator, which is the rate at which it cycles. Yabo? The rate at which it fetch, decode, execute, fetch, decode, execute. Those are cycles. So that's how you measure them. So I mean, think about it now, thousands and thousands of instructions per second. That's the speed of your computer. CPU will have, let's say, 2 cores to process the information, process the programs, get the instructions, la fetch, decode, execute. A GPU will have thousands of those cores, which is those freeways, which are then the multiple streams of processing that can happen simultaneously. Now, let's talk about the noise. Ne? So last week, there was a lot of coverage in the media around GPU providers. The reason I started Paku CPU, it's important to understand. Fetch, decode, execute is what we said CPU is. CPU has got, if you look at the, so CPU is it's a chipset, it's a chip. It's, if you look underneath it, it's got these threads, or pins rather, it's got these pins, and then that pin is mounted on your motherboard, apa ku computer yako. Ne? So, CPU yako, it usually will have 2 cores, and it can execute multiple instructions at a go. Then you have a GPU, which is a graphics processing unit. A GPU is a CPU on steroids. A GPU, the difference with it is that it's got parallel streams of workflows that you can use at a time. So Yakumbla Cite eCPU, it can run up to about 2.5 gigahertz in terms of its speed, clock speed sayo. GPU is a little bit slower, but the advantage is because it's got these multiple streams. So think of a freeway. If it's got 6 lanes or 7 lanes, traffic is moving at a speed, but also what is important is the volume that you're able to then move between memory and GPU to execute on tasks. GPU being a graphic processing unit, so graphics generally take up a lot of space. You will see if you save a movie, your movie or even your reel, the amount of the file size is much more than, for example, a document, a PowerPoint document. So graphics are heavy on memory, which is why GPUs are becoming GPUs, in fact, were very popular in gaming, because gaming, there's a lot of graphics, there's a lot of rapid movement, but also you want those the rapid movement help in gaming, because sometimes you've got a counterpart that is playing somewhere else in the world, and that response time. So GPUs were used initially for that. GPUs then moved into the AI space, because AI comes with large data sets that need to be trained, large data sets that need processing. So AI, there's different types. I mean, there's machine learning, there's deep learning. Zongezo zinto ezo ke we will unpack in future reels. But just so that you get an understanding that GPU was then repurposed, and the race now is on the best GPU at an affordable price, because the cost of compute is not cheap. So when you look at a GPU and you are assessing its efficiency, there's two things that you're looking at. There's cost efficiency, and then there's compute efficiency. It doesn't matter if it's cheap, if it's going to take me long. So I need both. I need it done quickly, and I also need it done at a processing power that will, get the job done. So those two things are important. It's your compute efficiency, and it is your cost efficiency, because one impacts the other. The slower it is, the more expensive it's going to become. So the story is this. GPUs, because they're used for training large data sets in different fields, could be the health industry, they want to process large data sets, let's say patient data, analyze trends, or another good example is a stock market. So there's a lot of data points, so you want to analyze, you want to forecast, so you start using these GPU to train models that can start predicting outcomes. So there's Deepseek, which is, so there's 3 right now that are topical. One is Deepseek, second one is OpenAI, and the third one is Nvidia. And Deepseek, the news was the cost of compute, if you look at Deepseek compared to Nvidia, caused the frenzy to say it is so much cheaper, and the capabilities and its features, and that's what caused the halabalu. What was the noise about? We've got Deepseek and High Flyer, which are hedge fund based in China. They develop an AI tool, as well as the hardware for stock market analysis. They then realize that they can use the power of this AI in other fields as well. And then they make a significant investment in the development of the technology. They hire resources, recruit very aggressively. They get talented developers. Some people are even trained on the job. But the development in terms of the speed that they took to catch up to more mature companies that have been in this industry, that are US based, is what caused the noise. But then the biggest noise was on the cost of compute, which was pegged, I think, at a $6 million figure. And that's where the frenzy was, because if you compare that with other platforms, it's much cheaper. But that was, we don't know if it was a marketing strategy, but that $6 million figure is a pre-training cost. If you take data as it is today from any source, masihlambi nithathe database yase Home Affairs, nithathe database yase Department of Health, ne? Those two data sources are formatted, created, stored differently. So there's pre-processing, there's alignment that needs to be done on the data, removing duplication, syncing, identifying what speaks to what. So the pre-training is a significant workload. So that $6 million figure, it's a pre-training cost. It's not the cost of training. Training itself then says, your data is now ready. I can then train it and start with, whatever algorithm, machine learning, etc., to get the desired, whether it's predictive analytics, whether it's forecasting, whether it's trend analytics, or even correlation of different data sets. There's a lot of applications we know with AI. So into ibihlupha ke ngoku last week, kula $6 million. And then obviously it had an impact on the US market, because then the other one took a dive because of the competition. But the hype, in my view, was misplaced, because it wasn't fully unpacked, la 6 million. It's not the total cost of training. It's a portion, which is the pre-training cost. So, you'll see now, obviously, the noise has died down, and you will see more resources out there. If you do your own research, you'll see now that there's actually, there's now a concerted effort to compute the cost of, total cost of computing across different platforms. So you've got your Nvidias, you've got your AMDs, you've got your Deepseeks, you've got your OpenAI. OpenAI is the interesting one, because it is open source. So you can then start taking code and building your own agents. We'll talk about what agents are, but agent is a piece of code that can execute a task on your behalf. So you can train it. You can train an agent, for example, to say, check my emails, and emails that come from, let's say, my line manager, those flag them to me. But emails that come from, so if you remember the whole thing around creating rules, you can now even build an agent to do that for you in the workplace so that you can be more productive. So there's a whole lot of use for AI out there that is making work life easier, that is increasing productivity. But also for me, it's for people to make use of their time to find themselves. Nobody is just one thing. And our day jobs take up so much of our time that we become abantu basemsebenzini. Kanti that's not your true self. There's so many dimensions to you. There's Wabo the mother, there's Wabo the engineer, there's Wabo the leader, there's Wabo the public speaker, there's Wabo the sister, there's Wabo the, so there's dimensions to a person, and that to me is what AI is doing. But I want to bring it back home to the Africa, ne? We are spending, and there's money in Nalanto. Ngathi be 4 days or 5 days, up and down, deep, knee deep in the news. The news or the action, for me, the call to action is for Africans to start building our own platforms. So I sit on the board of Angel Eye Collective. It is an association that comprises of more than 300 tech leaders across Africa. CIOs, strategy officers, leader in tech, you name them, they are there. And one of the things that we are focusing on is solutions for Africa. One of the things that I like to talk about is coding in our own languages. So because we've got our own. That's where the focus is. So we start small, we start with solving community problems, understanding, and that's why this platform is so important for me, because it starts with capacitating each other. Siyazi le terminology, we read up on it, and we understand how we then leverage technology to change each of our areas, improve our economic situation, create jobs, create businesses, but most importantly, businesses that scale, businesses that have access to markets outside of just South Africa. We want to move to a place where Africans are not just consumers, but producers of the tech. And what is going to drive local production is a local problem. And let me just share one thing with you. Yabona mna kukhona igama apha endilicapukelayo. Andilifuni mna elagama. Eli gama eli lithi LSM. Andilifuni elagama because elagama lithi abantu abalingani. Now, what is going to disrupt, what is going to equalize, and what is going to make us compete globally is tech. So betnan masame man jongane, like 1 page a day, umdu azti tech concept. Uyayibona? Apa, I'm going to be introducing some concepts to you. I will point you to resources. Le uvayi ngathi when uyayithanda, you look into it. I will provide as much resources as I can, but it really is up to you to capacitate ourselves. We are building a community up. Nobody is alone. If you recall, there used to be a platform called GitHub, where with open source, if you're a developer and you're stuck with a problem, you just take a screenshot of that piece of code, you plug it on there. Other experienced developer will give you troubleshooting tips. You take it, you go back to your code, it works, and then you continue. We need those platforms for Africa. We need those developer communities for Africa. So iqala apha kuthi lento. Singabe sifunda into engapheliyo esizofumana siba ngomvulo hayi bingeyonyani. Uyayiva? Masenzeni? African solutions by Africans. So I mean, this is something I'm really, really passionate about. And I mean, I'm honored to be on the board of the AI Collective because then I get to see what other countries are doing. And let me tell you, other countries in Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Mamela, amazing work that is being done. So once we start tapping into that collectively, it moves us forward, it propels us. Siyekele nto manje besithetha ngento ezingasiphambili. So I'm passionate about tech, and I believe that it touches on every single person. You don't need to be a techie, you don't need to have a technical background. Understand how to use it as a tool when in your environment. Often people ask me about the bad or sinister impacts of AI. And so I always say, look, AI, it makes a bad person worse and it makes a good person better. But what we don't need is someone who does not understand what we're talking about. So ndithi mna elam, let's form these communities. We help each other. If when you've got something that you found that works better out there, drop it in the comments. We are engaging, we're helping each other. I want a platform where people build a compiler ngesivenda okanye ngesixhosa okanye ngesizulu. Athi man le compiler yam jonga indinika le error singene kuyo sisolve siqhubeke. Yebo? That is how that's where we're going. And we need to really own the space to produce. And then ndifuna ugqibezela ke ngale of the role of women in tech, because it's something that I'm also very passionate about. Women in tech betuna. Now what I talk about is we need to be deliberate about the upward mobility of women in tech. Are we coaching them? Are we mentoring them? Are we upskilling them? Are we training them? Are we understanding their challenges? And we need to be clear apha kulendo of women in tech. Kwenze basizokhala lisivane. Asiceli. Akho nto siyicelayo. Izawukwenzeka. Iyenzeka. So mna lithe lam ongayithandiyo makacimele man. Yebo? Vala amehlo baba, because hayi ke it's too late for mama. All right, tech stars, that's it for today. See you next time.